Yeah, I wouldn't mind it either. Let's just let's just hop straight into it here. It's map number 1 here in the bottom right, spawning as a red Zerg on Hardlat, playing for Mystery Gaming. It is SHIN.
And his opponent in the top left, it is the blue Protoss player, I believe currently teamless, a returnee from the military. It is Stats.
Very true. To both of those things. As we see Stats opening up with a quick... Oh no. A quick pylon scout. He's gonna block his opponent's natural. Except there's no natural to be blocked here, Lambo. Because I don't really think SHIN is planning on building a hatchery on his own side of the map. At least not for now. He's gonna start with a hatchery on the other side of the map. And I wonder how Stats is gonna respond with that. He's gonna respond by pulling 5 workers, taking a gas, and I kind of like this response. Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it. I always wonder when I'm playing against this. I feel like the hatch dies so much slower than if you just put 6 probes right away. How come 5 probes is the correct response? Because from a Zerg point of view, 6 feels like with 5 you kill it just way later. Like, is it actually worth it having the extra probe money?
So whenever I do it with 6, I believe I'm lacking a little bit of cash. But it also depends on whether you allow the Evo chamber to go up. So technically I think the Evo chamber should never be capable of going up, right? If you do it well. So if you do it with 5 and the Evo chamber doesn't go up, then you should have, like, you just have more minerals basically. So this is kind of what happens. Now Stats is actually floating a bit of cash. He also built, I think, a pylon maybe a bit too early, but he wants to get the adept out. So yeah, finishing that or killing the hatch earlier doesn't actually do very much for you.
I see. So that's because you can make the nexus right away.
Yeah.
And you still cannot make it before the side before then. If you make 6.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely no way. Yeah, that's impossible. Okay. Not with this hatch before this. No, I don't think there's any real possibility of that. Meanwhile, so this was... Actually, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I think this is completely fine for Stats. Ragnarok was forced to take the 3rd base first himself, and now he's going for the 2 hatches afterwards. I personally think that pulling probes is just not good. I think that 2 gate is a little bit better, but I think that's personal preference. From the Zerg point of view, that feels a little harder to play against. Either way, SHIN here went for the double hatch and he went for early speed, so he should be relatively safe against any form of adept pressure, even though this was a Cybercore first opener, but it's going to be very difficult for him to get any drones over towards his own 3rd base because he was forced to take that one first. He won't really be able to mine from it, and you can already look, if you take a look at SHIN's main base, you can see that he's oversaturated already.
Yeah, so he's losing quite a few minerals here.
Those drones. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's going to be frustrating for him. Of course, SHIN still keeps that drone alive on the other side of the map. I like that Stats isn't getting distracted by that, isn't saying, hey, I'm going to go try and deal with it. Instead, want to focus on that adept harass on the other side of the map, because that is where the real damage is going to be dealt, right? Not by killing one drone in your main base. That's probably going to end up dying eventually anyway. So I do like the way that Stats is playing. Major oversaturation here in the main for SHIN, who, as a result, probably is also building a couple more links than he really needs to. 14 links against 2 adepts. That is definitely pushing it. Stats is deciding to shade in. He'll need to recall if he wants to keep those adepts alive.
Yep. That he goes into a little bit of a crunny here on Hardlat. Actually, he might not have energy because I think he would have recalled. Yeah, he didn't have energy to recall. So that's unfortunate, which means he ends up losing both adepts. So at this point, I do like it a little bit more for Ragnarok, now that the 2 adepts have died. Stats also made an unnecessary pylon that finished after his nexus was done, and he wasn't supply blocked to begin with, so yes, built 1 pylon too many early on. So a couple of minor mistakes from Stats, nothing too big, but he definitely didn't have the early game that he wished for, and I think if he practiced or planned for one specific build order, this is definitely not it, because he already started with a Cybercore first, right?
Yeah. Yeah, although I feel like in PvZ, getting your plan changed in the early game often really isn't the end of the world, as long as it's somewhat close, because you can kind of get back into that plan. It's many times build orders revolve kind of around those triple oracles and then 3 to 5 adepts or so. It's kind of rare, at least nowadays, to have like very tight early game builds, and even those, like if you're opening like single Void Ray into Twilight, the the execution remains fairly similar. While against Terran, if you lose like 1 or 2 probes or you get eBay blocked, it feels like it changes the timings much more, and especially defensive timings, which can feel tricky. I often feel like if I get, you know, if something bad happens or something weird happens in the early game versus Zerg, it's not so much the end of the world. As this Ling run by is pretty significant here. It's going to take out every single adept. 2 oracles are going to get pulled back. This also was a serious investment out of Ragnarok. Of course, a lot of these Lings were still there from the early game. So maybe not even that big of an investment recently, but more using that earlier investment. Forcing these 2 oracles to stay at home, clearing those adepts. That's all very frustrating here for Stats.
Yeah, I actually think Ragnarok is reasonably far ahead at this point already. He overtook Stats considerably earlier than usual in the worker department, and he defended. He even went for a super early spores, which unnecessarily early spores even, because the Aripits didn't even cross the map at that point. The only mistake that SHIN has been making so far is that he just now started 7 overlords, which is not good for his worker production, so that kind of saves Stats his early game a little bit, without him really knowing about it, because I think SHIN up until that point was pretty far ahead.
Yeah. Moving over to a 4th base right now after taking 6 gases. Relatively late 4th. As well as a +1 for a range upgrade. So smelling like a little bit maybe of some type of roach attack. We could also be looking at a, well, some type of roach Hydra play into lurkers maybe. This is something that SHIN has been doing in the past as well. And we do see that Hydra then go down. I think I've even seen SHIN play roach Ravager Hydra attacks in the past few months. Now, that's a blast from the past, Lambo.
That is a blast from the past. I mean, we've seen it just yesterday that Dark went Hydra Ling into a Roach Hydra all-in, which I haven't seen outside of Diamond League ever, but it worked. He beat Showtime with it, and this looks to be something similar, because usually if you go Lurkers, you don't go the Hydra for the Hydra then first.
Yeah.
It is not good at all, though, against what Stats is doing. If he just makes a Disruptor, and also with Blinkstalker Disruptor on 3 base, even though he had a good early game, I really don't think this should work. It all depends on a bit on how good Stats is scouting us, and if he actually realizes. Like, if he makes a 4th base, tries to hold the 4th base, this is exactly where SHIN's army could shine. But if you realize, okay, this guy is making a Roach Hydra off of 3 base, like if he sees Hydra spawning right now instead of drones, it's a huge tell. So the question is, does Stats look? And thankfully, we actually have a confirmation of where he's looking on the minimap. Nowadays, with this advanced technology, we can see that he did in fact not look at the natural. But I think he might have seen it in the main base. So, I mean, he's not expanding. As long as he's not expanding, I don't really see him dying.
He is moving out, though.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, well, in a way, it's not actually bad if the armies meet on SHIN's side of the map, right? It only becomes bad if these armies somehow miss each other, or Stats really believes that he needs to commit. If he's just going in there to poke, then that's bad. Or then it's not that bad. But if he goes in there to try and kill his opponent, and he feels that need, then it could be bad. Stats here sees the lack of drones on the fort. I'm not sure if he was paying attention to it, because he also has 2 adepts going into the main base of his opponent. He's still sticking to the 3 bases, now sees his opponent move out. I think this should be a little bit of a hold. I'd love to see a battery in the natural. Yep, that's exactly what we're getting. Battery plus cannon. I think that second Colossus should be a disruptor. We don't have any sentries, which is frustrating. It would be great to have a couple of sentries here. Despite there being Ravagers, I still think force fields are very useful. As SHIN is now going to walk up this ramp, Colossus is helping out. I'm not sure how SHIN feels about this. I'm not sure how I feel about this, trying to walk up that ramp, especially with those links blocking. I think this little rotation that SHIN is doing here is indeed the correct call. Prism is still on the other side of the map, as this Stasis Ward is not going to connect with a lot of drones, just going to hit 2. Scouts the infestation bit, but that might trick Stats in a fake sense of security, as SHIN is actually moving in right now. Vials are connecting with the Stalkers as well as with a Colossus. Sloppy micro there out of our Protoss player. Colossus too far in the front. First one goes down. Second one going to get targeted as well. Poor control here out of Stats, and no force fields, no disruptors. This Roach Hydra Ravager attack is going to work here, Lambo.
Yeah, it's going to work. This was a lot closer than it looked like, because this is full all-in. Like, if this doesn't work, he will never have Vipers out in time for the max out Colossus Stalker push, and then in that case you can't really hold it. But yeah, Stats just didn't micro well. I think he tried to kite backwards, expecting to already have Thermal Lance, but the Colossus stood way too far at the front every time they shot, because the Thermal Lance just wasn't done. So the Colossus were overextended, and because of it, he lost the game pretty much. He also didn't fight in range of the batteries. It was, it was just not a great fight. I can't say that I love the strategy from Ragnar, but it did work. So
Then I love it. I love wins, Lambo. I don't really care
Exactly.
whether theoretically the strategy should work, at least when I'm playing. You know, when we're analyzing, I think it's interesting, but when you're playing yourself, a win is a win, and that's all that matters. And it's an important win for SHIN. It's a very bad loss here for Stats, because he's technically still capable of advancing, although, did he take a map of Clem?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, so then it's going to be real difficult. If you don't take any maps, and you're going to end up going... the 0-3 in match scores. He only took a map of Oliveira so far, so this game is probably a deciding game for Stats already. On the second day, his first match.
Yep. I honestly don't think that Stats has too high expectations. I think he just wants to produce good games. I mean, he obviously hopes that he advances, but I think the way he... Because I listened to his interview, I think he actually just tries to be competitive. I think he would already be happy with it. I think for this one, he's kicking himself a little bit because he was literally producing Stalker Colossus against a Roach Hydraulic.
Yes, perfect.
Which, that doesn't maybe sound that weird, but Roach Hydraulic really is uncommon. And if you go Stalker with a Robobay, you should just hold it on 3 base. It should not even be close, actually. So the miss micro on his part there, also not making disruptors would have been, I think, easier. Because at that point, the Zerg is forced to engage into you a little bit faster, and you can fall back to the batteries. Of course, a worse fight for the Zerg, so... A couple of things he could have done differently, and won there very easily, honestly. So I think he's going to be kicking himself a little bit here.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that's always good to remember is that when a Zerg tries to fight against Stalkers with a Roach Hydra, Ravager army like that, the thing that the Zerg really wants to do is kind of get up close to the Stalkers. So you can attack, well, as many units as possible, right? Because the Roaches have pretty crappy range. So you want to be moving in as far as you can. But you can't really do that if there are Disruptors still in the back. So what you want to do against the Stalkers, you can't do against the Disruptor. So they just help out so much when it comes to the micro. Then they have the potential of hitting big. But even if they don't hit big, just the presence of the Disruptors make the Zergs fight so much worse and lose a decent amount of DPS. Unless they can jump on the Disruptors if they're in the front, then it's a different story. But if the Protoss controls that semi-well, it usually is difficult. I also really believe that if you know you're fighting against someone that has a 4th hatch but no drones on there, is that warping in 1 or 2 sentries as early as viable is just going to be a good call. Because these force fields are always going to come in handy. While you're kiting back, they can help keep your Colossus alive. They can help just basically secure an area. Imagine you're kiting back towards your 3rd base and they try to move in towards your natural. You throw a quick force field there and it buys you a little bit of time. Yes, the bile eventually is going to clean it up, but that's another 5-6 seconds in which your natural is safe. So I think definitely a lot of things that Seth still could have done different, whether it comes to the army that he produced or how he controlled the army that they actually ended up having. But SHIN just walks away with the win there. And this is, I think, SHIN's biggest skill, to be honest, is winning games. It's a very good skill to have. It often doesn't look theoretically perfect, but he plays fast. He's mechanically very sound, and he understands what it takes to win games and to take series.
Yeah, I do 100% agree. Although he's making a huge mistake here, as he's misrallying the drones on the other side of the hatchery. This is also a builder advantage, I think, for the Protoss, because he went for a no scout against a gold base. You can't block the gold base to begin with. Oh my god, the drone's even running back because the other hatchery is theoretically closer than the gold base. Oh, he keeps doing it.
Mess it up. This is
SHIN, what is happening?
This probably cost him close to, what, 60, 70 minerals or so, this little joke? This is really expensive. I think it was 5 workers on the gold. Like, that is huge, no?
That is huge, yeah. And that's missed mining time. He can't even afford the hatch now. The 3rd hatch usually already goes down at this point. So it's a pretty big deal.
What is the actual timing usually for that 3rd hatch?
A little bit before now, so 2:34 or so.
Okay. It's gonna build 6 links. It's not gonna be capable of taking out these debris before the adept shows up. That's also frustrating. So far, Stats with a very solid early game. We still have this 4 ling run by coming in. Oh, Stats, you can't just finish a shade under Overlord vision. That just makes it so clear for the Zerg what to do. You always want to hide that adept. Whether that's moving it back in towards the net or moving it forward. Stats is gonna shade back with these 2 adepts, which is understandable against 4 lings. And You could even say that this is the correct call. I think a lot of the time you want to keep the adepts across the map, but against 4 links, that's really a lot.
I mean, if he doesn't lose any probes, I don't think that's too bad for him, but he's already losing 1, barely not losing the second, not the best control out of Ragnarok, but now loses 3 probes already, not microing quite as well at natural. If Ragnarok actually focus phase, maybe he could get 1 more, but he doesn't. Instead he gets out with one of the links. This really saved Ragnarok, because this was an atrocious early game so far.
Yeah.
If that up didn't go out, it would be a catastrophic early game. Even though you get the gold base is not that good on this map because you lose so much mining time from transferring the drones, and then later on you once again lose mining time from transferring drones after the gold base is already saturated. This is a trade where SHIN gives up a lot of Zerglings in order to save his Overlord and get the Stalker, so this is also decent, I think, for SHIN.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, these 2 adepts are a little bit more dangerous right now, so SHIN will need to respect that as target fire here on the individual links is good. 1 adept will fall though. It's just gonna need to shade back home. There's really not that much you can do here with a single adept stats. I think it's a mistake to shade forward here. I don't entirely understand this. This seems to be relying on the fact that SHIN won't build any links. It's gonna still get 1 kill. If he gets a 2nd kill, this was worth it. Yep. Somewhat.
Stats disagrees. He sends the adept, and I think it would have died anyway, so I think it's...
You don't think you could have shaded up to the top side?
Maybe.
Back to the tower?
I think there's a high chance that it gets caught at some point. If you shade it to the tower, maybe, if it gets there, because the Oracles will cover for it. It's fine. Either way, SHIN now produced a lot of Zerglings, and once again, Stats' third base is exposed. There's only a single adept here. Great warping spot, though, for those 2 extra adepts. Those can definitely not be killed by the Zerglings, and he actually decides to engage them with the Zerglings, which I don't entirely agree with. It's a lot of Zerglings that he lost there. For getting a pylon, also didn't get a supply block, which SHIN obviously can't know. He's making a spine crawler right now.
Wait,
did he somehow see that it was glaives? Alright. No. That's why to us. So spine crawlers are not common at all, because usually a spine crawler is the cost of 3 drones. So unless you're 100% certain that you're under defending against some form of pressure, it's very weird to do this without a confirmation, as this right now looks like a normal 3-gate adepts. It's too early to be glaives after the 2 Oracle and after the early game like that. Oh no! It was terrible.
Oh. That was an accidental finish.
Yeah, that was a game-losing mistake.
Yeah.
Because he's going glaives. Yeah, he lost all of his adepts before glaives. There's not much to talk pretty about.
Yeah. He wanted to force out links with those adepts, and he did a good job at forcing out links. But the point of forcing out the links is that then later you have like 8 extra adepts with glaives, and you're gonna trade well. This trade actually went kind of okay here for Stats. He's gonna continue shading forward. That allows him to damage these queens quite a bit. Where are the oracles in this equation? I don't see them quite yet. There are still 2 on the map. They're not helping out here for whatever reason. There's 1 downstairs that has some energy. Where's that 2nd oracle?
There's 1 in the bottom left and there's 1 in the bottom center right. Either way, he's getting a couple of queens. This is like the best possible outcome for Stats, as he's buying a lot of time, and Ragnarok keeps chasing the glaives. I don't know why he's chasing the shade, because this shade will never be finished. The moment it finishes, Stats will just lose all of his units. So now there's not enough anti-air anymore, and the oracles can actually come back to help, which I really think is necessary as well, because SHIN has an overwhelming army supply advantage.
Yeah. Even after losing 4 queens there, this still isn't looking great. Batteries can be double biled as well. Super battery basically gets destroyed before it even gets to heal anything. GG gets